Hello everyone. Today's question for flat earthers is, can flat earthers explain gravity versus density? As we all know, flat earthers like to say that gravity doesn't exist and everything that makes things rise or fall in air or float and sink in water has to do with the difference in density between the air or water and the objects in them. Now, if this is true, then I have some issues with it. These are the issues. What about unforced differences in density and pressure for air and water, unforced spontaneous motion in a vacuum, and unforced spontaneous attraction between two objects? Well, the difference in density and pressure, you can force a difference in air pressure. I'm going to explain this with this. You can see a race car going over a racing track, and when the air is humid you can see these vortices at the rear wing. This happens because when the car moves at a high speed, the air in front of the wing is being compacted with all the water molecules in it, and behind the wing there's a vacuum created. Now, the air surrounding the car and the rear wing wants to fill the vacuum behind the wing. So you can see the high pressure compacted air being released through the wing end plates and then moving towards the vacuum behind the car. And as the pressure evens out, the high pressure is going to dissolve in the vacuum. The vortices will cease to exist. Now, this would be active applying force to the air, creating a high pressure and a low pressure. But how does this happen when you don't force it? When you're at sea level, the air and the water has a certain pressure, and in the air, the higher you go, the less dense the air is, and in the water, the deeper you go, the higher the density becomes, and the higher the water pressure becomes. Now, gravity explains this by being a force pulling on the molecules in water towards the center of the earth and pulling on the molecules in the air towards the center of the earth, resulting in a low pressure at high altitudes and high pressure at low altitudes and high depths. So that would explain it with gravity, and I would like to know, if there's no gravity, why is there a difference in air pressure or water pressure? Because if there's nothing pulling on the molecules in the air or the water, then the pressure should be equal no matter at what altitude or what depth you are. So I would like flat earthers to explain this. The other thing is spontaneous motion in a vacuum. Now, we've all seen this video with the ball and the feathers in a vacuum chamber, and if there's no gravity, this should be impossible. As you see the ball and the feathers fall, they each have a different weight, but they fall at the same speed, I would say about 9.8 meters per second squared, and this should not be possible. If there's no gravity, no force would act upon the ball and the feathers. And Newton's first law of motion says, an object either remains at rest or continues to move at a constant velocity unless acted upon by a force. So the ball and the feathers were at rest, they were released, and if there's no force applying to it and there is no density in the air or a difference between density between the ball feathers and its surroundings, then the ball and feathers shouldn't move, but they do. So I would like flat earthers to explain why the ball and the feathers move if there is no gravity and the objects are in a vacuum, so there is no density of any air as well. The last thing I would like them to explain is the unforced spontaneous attraction between two objects. Now, gravity is nothing more but an attraction between two objects. One of the objects could be the Earth, but it could also be any other object. So, in this video by Thomas Koch, about gravitational attraction, they have two examples. Excuse me. First, they have two lead balls on a free-floating bar, and they're going to introduce two larger lead balls. And what you see is that without any additional force, the smaller balls on the bar are going to be attracted to the larger balls. There's no magnetism or anything, it's just moving by itself. The second example they use is very interesting. Here they hang a small lead pyramid on a scale, and you can see that it's 152.166 grams. Now, they're going to introduce a large lead ball underneath it. Again, these objects aren't magnetized, but you can see something very interesting. As there is no additional force being applied, and there's no difference in air density or whatsoever, then this shouldn't happen. As you can see, the lead pyramid changed in weight. It went from 152.166 to 152.167 grams. So there's a small change in weight. If everything has to do with density, how is this possible? So I would like flat earthers to explain how these three things work without gravity. If gravity doesn't exist, this shouldn't exist either, but it does. So I would invite all the flat earthers to explain this. Thank you very much for watching.